Today we are going to review how and when you should use quotation marks in your writing. How about these two literary essay extracts? If you read each one, you'll see that one is more thorough than the other. The one excerpt on the top, in As You Like It, Shakespeare presents the contrast between city and country life directly through Orlando's identification of Rosalind's accent being something finer than you could purchase in so removed a dwelling. As a result, the audience is so once again reminded that these people are indeed city folk and have been removed to the countryside. The first extract is more successful because it includes an example to support the main idea that there is a contrast between city and country life. Quotations are often used in academic writing for the following reasons: to back up the writer's thoughts and ideas with credible sources, to add weight to an argument or thesis statement, to illustrate a point more clearly with evidence from a text, and to demonstrate how the writer arrived at their opinion or point of view. The middle two are ones we will often use in our literary essays. Whenever you write a literary essay, a research essay, or article, you will be expected to do a certain amount of background reading and research. If you just steal other writers' words without correctly quoting and giving credit to them, it's called plagiarism, and you need to avoid plagiarism at all costs. So let's learn how to incorporate quotations correctly. When should you use quotations? Your writing must be predominantly your own thoughts and words. You want to quote sparingly and only when it is effective. This is an important point to consider because you don't want your paper to just be a string of quotes from the literature. You want to include your own words as well. Therefore, only include quotations in the following situations: when your own words could not say it better and the quotation will be more effective or memorable; when you want to use the exact words of someone else or the exact words of a piece of text; or when you want to add evidence or authority from another source to add credibility to your point. The most common that we will use is the second one, when you want to use the exact words of someone else or the exact words of a piece of text when we are writing our literary essays. How do you include a quote? It can't stand alone. It must be incorporated into your own writing with an explanation, introduction, or reason why it is being included. And this is what we call quote integration. Here's your earlier example. In the first sentence, you have an introductory point about the difference between city and country life. It's backed up by a quotation from the text, and then an explanation or reason for inclusion is given. As a result, the audience is once again reminded that these people are indeed city folk and have been removed to the countryside. Explains your main idea and how your quote supported that. So you should use the following formula for including quotations: make a point, include a quotation, and give an explanation or state the relevance of the quote. For example, forcing students to wear school uniforms can have a positive impact on their education. That's the point you are trying to make. Indeed, in a study conducted in Florida, it was found that, quote, elementary school students in both rural and urban school districts demonstrated improvement in academic achievement for the first year following the implementation of the school uniform policy, end quote, open parentheses, Schamberger 23, close parentheses, period. That's your quotation. This clearly gives credit to the argument for implementing a mandatory uniform policy, and we as a Board of Governors should investigate this issue further. That is supporting the relevance of the quote. Let's talk about citations. Whenever you quote someone else, you must give credit to them and indicate where the words came from. For example, according to one study, bullying is, quote, directly related to the high rates of depression found in inner city schools, end quote, open parentheses, Graves, which is the author's last name, 132, which is the page number of where the quote was found, close parentheses, comma, though there is little statistical evidence for this opinion. So you're indicating in the parentheses the author of the quotation and the page number. If you're using a play or we're working with a play, it's going to be slightly different. For example, Iago's motivations are clear when he says, I hate the Moor. And in your parentheses here for your citation, you're going to include the act number, which is number 1, the scene number, which is scene 3, and the line number, which is line 429. And this is from the play Othello. A note on citation format: we are using MLA format, and there are certain rules for this format. Include the author's surname and page number on which the quotation occurs. Here you have open parentheses Smith, 34, which is the page number, and close parentheses. However, you've already mentioned the author, you don't need to include it in your parentheses. When Jones notes the, quote, extremely adverse effects of poaching, end quote, parentheses 144, close parentheses, comma, he is speaking about the African context. In here, the reader would imply, since you're using MLA format, that your author is Jones because you have referenced Jones. When quoting poetry, include the line number. When Blake writes, quote, the gates of this chapel were shut, end quote, in parentheses 5, which indicates the line number. When quoting plays, and we talked about this before, you're going to include the act, scene, and line number at the end with your citation. Let's talk about punctuation. Quotation marks. Any words which are not your own should be enclosed within quotation marks that tells the reader that these are not your own words. The theme of deception is seen through the character of Iago and his manipulative words. Phrases such as, quote, were I the Moor, I would not be Iago, end quote, and open quote, I am not what I am, end quote, are clear evidence of this theme. And since this is a play, in your parentheses, you are including the act number, the scene number, and the line number. End punctuation. Your punctuation marks, such as periods, commas, and semicolons, should appear after the citation in parentheses. However, question marks and exclamation points should appear within the quotation marks if they are part of the quoted passage. That's important. But after the parenthetical citation if they are part of your text. And here we have some examples. On the left, in fact, the protagonist in the poem even chooses to pass his time reading a, quote, gentle tale of love and languishment, end quote, which illustrates Keats' notion of the function of art and literature. You have line 8 that you're quoting of Keats. Your comma comes after the parentheses because you're using a comma just inside your sentence. A good example of quotation marks inside, question marks inside the quotation would be in this poem, Autumn poses a question to the reader. Will time say nothing, but I told you so? And the question mark is included inside the quotations because it is a part of the sentence. Ellipsis, when you leave out any words, you must indicate the omission with an ellipsis, 3 periods with a space before and after. For example, the narrator clearly wishes to prolong the night. Quote, I want tonight to be long as my life, ellipsis, more than any other night of my life, I want to feel alive, end quote. This prompts the reader to question what awaits him in the morning. And this is an example of editing part of the quote so that your quote completely supports your main idea. So to review, you're including quotations in your writing to back up your arguments and ideas, making your points well substantiated. An idea or point plus a quotation plus an explanation makes good quoting, and that's an example of quote integration. Never plagiarize, clearly show when you're using someone else's words, and always cite your sources. Make sure you use the correct punctuation. Make sure you know how to use square brackets, slashes, and ellipsis. And different types of text, for example, plays, poetry, novels, articles, all have different conventions and formats. Make sure you know them all. If you need any further assistance with your quote integration, please see Mrs. Petak or myself, and we can help you work on integrating your quotes.